The rival. I said the rival. This stupid Game Freak issued computer is really giving me a hard time. It doesn't want me to write about how one of the most important character archetypes in Pokemon has been completely dismantled over the last 20 years. What were once characters who pushed you to be a better and more competitive Pokemon trainer are now your biggest groupies who can't stop glazing you every 20 seconds. The OG rival Blue, honestly, nearly hit it out of the park on the very first attempt. Blue is what we call in 2025 a Nepo baby, and he's proud of it, even though he shouldn't be. The grandson of the great Professor Oak, it seems that Blue is all but destined to become one of the greatest Pokemon trainers. This sets up for a very compelling underdog story right off the bat, where you, playing as the new kid on the block, Red, have to prove yourself to the world as a worthy Pokemon trainer compared to the likes of Blue. But what's cool about this rivalry is that battling is just the surface. With the Pokédex being more of the focal point of the original games, Blue also takes every opportunity to rub it in your face just how many Pokemon he's captured. Whether it's through rotating his team and inadvertently making you think that you killed his Raticate, or sometimes just outright lying and saying that he's already caught 40 species by the SSN. Yeah right, Buster. Whatever. The anime extends on this with Blue's counterpart Gary, who is almost undeniably just a straight-up better researcher than Ash, even if Ash does outplace him in both leagues. He catches so many Pokemon and becomes so good at field research that he eventually retires to become a researcher like his grandfather, kind of fulfilling that arc that Blue never got to have in the games. Yes, Blue may not be the deepest character in the games, as his whole shtick is basically just, nah, I'm better than you, but he pulls it off pretty well, I'd say. He really is always one step ahead of you. He's always ahead of you on the map, his name is engraved on every Gym Challenger statue before you even get there, and while there's no way to actually verify it in-game, he's probably catching more Pokemon than you are too. He's cocky, but he backs it up with genuine skill. Generation 2's rival is the same concept pushed to its limits. Silver carries the same cocky, egotistical attitude that Blue did, but with an elevated level of hatred towards the player for most of the game. He's even proven to be an outright criminal as soon as the game starts, by stealing his starter from Elm's lab, and he later does it again in Cianwood City, presumably stealing his Sneasel from the same NPC who gives you Shuckle. I think we lost that end of the deal, not gonna lie. Because of this, a battle against Silver feels personal, and losing to him is like admitting that his method of aggressively raising Pokemon is superior. He's basically a foil to all of the common themes of Pokemon. But unlike Blue, Silver actually does have a real arc throughout the game. He questions whether his philosophy of using Pokemon as tools of war is correct after being thrashed by Lance at the Rocket HQ. From this point onward, he gradually becomes more friendly, and his Golbat even finally evolves into Crobat from the elevated level of friendship he shows it. Dang, what a cool way to show off character growth through one of his Pokemon. I actually really love this. And in the remakes, they go a step further to explain Silver's hatred for the weak and Team Rocket, as it's finally revealed that he's Giovanni's son who rejects his father for running off and hiding after losing to Red. Honestly, valid. That kid is like 11 years old, it's not that deep. But it seemed like after only 2 generations, they'd hit on the perfect combination of cocky, yet somewhat sympathetic. And so, they would completely undo all of this starting in Generation 3. Look, I hate to say this, but Gen 3 Brendan and May might just be the worst quote-unquote rivals to walk this earth. Like Blue, they primarily become a trainer to assist the professor, but they seem more interested in doing fieldwork than actually trying to become a strong trainer. Yes, they do occasionally pout and get upset when you beat them in battle, but then they just take their ball and go home after their last battle in Lily Cove City. They don't even evolve their starters all the way to their final form! They're so bad that Wally has to come back from his mid-game sabbatical to become your real rival at the end of the game. Now, again, credit where credit is due to the remakes, as they did try to make the distinction between May and Wally way more clear. Wally's arc from shy little baby boy to competent and confident rival is much more pronounced, and May and Brendan become a bit more research-oriented with Mega Evolution being added to the mix. They also sorta become like shipping companions to the main character, which does set them apart from other similar friendly rivals, and makes a nice reference to the Adventures manga where their counterparts Ruby and Sapphire are an actual couple, so that's kinda nice. But yeah, regardless, this group definitely started leading us down a dark path for rivals to come. Barry is kind of like an amped up version of Brendan and May. He's very friendly, but way more competitive and active in the story. And like Silver, he does go through a tiny arc over the course of the game. As he laments his lack of strength compared to his father, Tower Tycoon Palmer, particularly after losing to Jupiter at Lake Acuity. But later, he learns from this loss and renews his vow to get stronger and help the player with the crisis at Mount Coronet. Supplemental material from the anime, Pokemon Evolutions, and Pokemon Masters have made this arc much more clear than it is in the core games, but hey, at least they attempted to write a character this time. Black and White are probably the first games where the friendly rivals truly work out though. These two are much more character-driven than previous rivals in the series, because Gen 5 actually cared about its character writing. Charon is a representation of the ideal of strength, while Bianca represents finding your own true path in a world that's trying to make you conform to something else. Like Barry, Charon is constantly frustrated by the fact that he's unable to keep up with you on his journey, while Bianca is just more on a journey for self-discovery. I do wish they'd beefed up Charon a little bit more. I think it would have been a cool concept to see him compete against you for the legendary Dragonstone in the latter half of the game instead of just resigning himself to moral support. But I don't mind how these two are portrayed, especially since N takes on more of the traditional rival role in this game, challenging the player's philosophy on Pokemon battling and pushing them towards a grander goal similar to Blue or Silver. N in general is just a fantastic character, but he wears so many different hats over the course of the game that it almost feels unfair to compare him to other rivals. Black 2 and White 2 would then follow this up with Hugh, a character who, while still friendly, definitely is a lot more intense and less buddy-buddy than the last few rivals, as his primary goal is more to destroy Team Plasma and reclaim his sister's Purloin than it is to become the champion. If anything, he's just there to keep the players sharp and see if they're up to the challenge of going against an evil organization. Hugh is pretty good, but dang did they give him the worst, most forgettable rival team of all time. This does not do his character any favors. Just like how forgetting to subscribe to the channel and like the video does me no favors, so please do that if you haven't. So after Gen 5 actually rebounded pretty well with their rivals, we then got whatever the heck X and Y was trying to do. To this day, I still can't tell you why we needed all of these different characters. Some say it's because each one of them are supposed to represent all the different paths a Pokemon trainer can take. Serena is the traditional battler trying to become champion, Trevor is the Pokedex completionist, Shauna is just traveling for fun, and Tierno is, doing something else entirely. You know, this would be so much more evident if these games had contests or literally anything else for him to do. But still, half of these guys do absolutely nothing in the story. Tierno and Trevor, y'all didn't even show up in Geocinch Town until after the weapon was fired. Get off the stage, you frauds! Yes, the Kalos games are very intentionally less challenging and try to highlight the themes of relationships and togetherness more so than outright competition, but couldn't they have done this through one well-rounded character and not four incredibly one-note characters? Anyway, I don't want to talk about them anymore. In Alola, we have Hau and Gladion doing their best impressions of May and Wally, in the sense that you have one rival who starts as your friendly rival but kind of falls into obscurity by the end to make room for a new, more powerful rival. At least here, the writers are self-aware of how much of a non-threat Hau is meant to be, except for that one battle in Mali City where he has the most cracked Alolan Raichu ever. What was up with that? But yeah, they intentionally write Hal to take battles less seriously because he's on a journey to have fun. But as Gladion reminds him many times, his lack of seriousness has real consequences. And Hal experiences this when he isn't able to keep Lily safe from Team Skull late in the game. Unfortunately, this arc falls kinda flat on its face in the original Sun and Moon, as Hal barely does anything after this. But Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon at least make an effort to have Hal take a more active role in the end of the game, as he protects his grandfather during the Ultra Beast crisis and challenges the player for the title of Alola's first champion. Okay, still not amazing, but at least they acknowledge that more work needed to be done here. Good job, Game Freak. Advancing to Sword and Shield, this game is probably the most rival-focused game in the series, with 3 of them playing a major role in the story. And by that I mean mostly Hop and then Bede and Marnie, who take turns disappearing for 10 hours at a time. I made a video many years ago about why I actually like Hop as a character and how he's not just the discount Hal that many people were making him out to be, and I stand by that. Hop does have a decent arc in these games. He starts off trying to be like his unbeatable brother, but about halfway through the gym challenge, he begins to feel just how large that shadow really is. He becomes so frustrated to the point where he replaces nearly all of his old reliable Pokemon with new powerful ones, only to meet the same result. From there, Hop has to come to terms with the fact that not everyone is the protagonist of their RPG. So, Yeah, kinda like how Hop is written to be kinda intentionally weak. This means that the role of the main competitive rival falls upon the other two. Except Marnie really doesn't do a whole lot other than sell loads of merchandise for the Pokemon Company, and Bede has his gym challenge cut short around the halfway point, disposing of our first real jerk rival in nearly 20 years. What a waste. I think the concepts behind these characters are good enough, but for a game that exclusively focuses on the gym challenge and trying to become the ultimate trainer, I feel like none of them give that push to become stronger. Hop has a good character arc, but that doesn't really make him a competent rival. Bede gets taken out at the halfway point, and Marnie is basically just another friendly rival. A lot of people say that this trio are their favorite rivals in the series and that they got all three aspects right, and I completely respect that opinion. I just feel like none of them were handled 100% correctly. I'll give them credit, it's at least a step up from Gen 6 and Gen 7. And then, in Paldea, we have Nemona, who is a very curious case of a rival. Mostly because she somehow is supposed to be a champion, but she's also mirroring your steps through the region at the same time. Like she's willingly nerfing herself for a second playthrough of the game, just so she has someone to do it with. I don't know, it's a cool idea again, but very hard to actually pull off well. Like Blue, she is experienced and way ahead of you in terms of being a good trainer, but she's way more supportive and helpful than cocky and arrogant. Though really, it's because she's hoping that you'll develop into a trainer who can actually take her on when she's going all out. Since apparently even Geeta can't do that, not that I'm surprised. Her whole arc is that it's lonely at the top and she just wants a worthy opponent because of how battle obsessed she is. And again, as a character, just like Hop, I actually really like her and her whole character journey is very unique from anything we've seen before. My only problem is, they repeat the same things from Gen 6, 7, and 8, where the main rival is intentionally not there to challenge you. Not so coincidentally, this is also where the rivals started picking the starter that is weak to yours. Shauna does it in X and Y, Hau does it in Alola, Hop does it in Galar, and Nemona does it here. And for Nemona in particular, I don't love this decision, because she's supposed to be helping you develop into a stronger trainer. So shouldn't she be putting you in uncomfortable battle situations? If I'm playing Super Smash Bros. Against Little Timmy, he ain't gonna get much better if I'm intentionally playing to lose. They had an opportunity to make a failure is the best teacher type of story with Nemona being an actual threat, but again, they make her intentionally easy, which doesn't work with her as much as the previous handful of rivals. At the very least, the story does progress regardless of whether you win or lose against her, so she isn't purely engineered to always lose against you like other rivals are, which I actually like. But honestly, I think Tawny and Urbane are just better in this regard. They both use the starters you don't choose, they wield multiple Mega Evolutions, they're competing against you for the same goal to become the strongest Mega Evolution user. In fact, narratively speaking, it actually makes more sense to lose to them in the final battle, so they're the ones who get Mega Floette. They're friendly rivals, but they're also really competent without being champion level beforehand like Nemona. But please, for the love of God, Game Freak, stop putting freaking Avalugg on boss trainers' teams. I hate seeing this god-awful ice cube so much. In general, I feel like Game Freak's philosophy of making the games intentionally easier over time has harmed the rival the most of any of these characters. And yes, there are actual interviews where they have said that they've made the games intentionally easier. People always want to fight me on this and say the Pokemon games aren't easier now just because you're grown up and you know how to play the game. They are literally telling us this! It's not just the fact that they are friendlier now than they used to be. Yes, I prefer my rivals with a little bit of edge and angst, maybe I'm just a traditionalist, but they have proven that they can write good friendly rivals on occasion. So I don't want to seem like this whole video is just boiling down to evil rivals good, friendly rivals bad, because I think that's a very basic take that most people already agree on. I think it's the combination of we need rivals who are fleshed out, but actually competitive at the same time. Not just ones who are putting you on a pedestal as the chosen one from the very beginning. This is the complete opposite of how the rival concept originated in Gen 1, where Blue was the chosen one that you had to overcome. Now, it's the other way around for the most part. And that is the most damaging thing in my opinion. But hey, like I said, I think they actually got Tawny and Urbane down pretty well. Even Kieran, I know he's not a traditional rival and he was DLC, but I mean, he was really good, he was competitive, and actually strong for once. We just need something like him in a base game. So who knows, maybe they're figuring out a way to get the rival to be a compelling character again. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But hey, what do you think? Do you agree with my takes? Disagree? Let me know in the comment section down below. But don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoy, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you guys next time.